Welcome to the Nostalgia Test Podcast, the show where two longtime friends put their mainstream pop culture past to the ultimate test, the Nostalgia Test. All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Nostalgia Test Podcast. I'm Dan Dissinger here in LA, and I'm here with my longtime friend and co-host Manny Coelho in New York. Manny, how are you tonight?
What's going on? I'm crazy excited today because we finally are here, Dan. We're finally here. We've been talking about this. It's been on the list since day one, obviously. Rest in peace. My Boston Terrier was named after this movie. So I am super excited to get into it because this is going to lead into a huge roundtable, which is going to feature all, not five, but all six of these movies from this franchise. So I am crazy excited. So what is the Nostalgia Test? Since you're here, I'm going to let you know. The Nostalgia Test is where Dan and I put our pop culture past to the test. What does that mean? We decide whether it stays nostalgic, where we know we used to like it as kids, it makes us feel good, and whether it passes means do we still like it now? Is it still good enough? Does it hold up? Whatever you want to call it. It's called the Nostalgia Test, and we decide. And it's a guest. Yeah. And it's a guest episode. Yeah. So
that I'm super excited too. We got two amazing guests from the Measuring the Score podcast, Chris and Leslie here for the inaugural Rocky series going into Rocky 1. Chris and Leslie, thank you so much for being here.
Oh yeah, no problem.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we're super excited. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your podcast and who you are, and then we'll jump right in.
Well, as you said, I'm Chris. I'm one of the co-hosts of Measuring the Score, and we are a film score podcast. We basically just list film scores on their own, then we watch the film and judge it, see if the score works for the film or not. And we were sitting around one day talking, and I said, hey, it'd be kind of cool to do a podcast. And she said, I got one. We're going to do a film score podcast. And I was like, how would that work? I mean, you're okay, I guess this could work. And so she's the one that came up with the whole idea of the podcast. And so,
yeah, I felt like, if we were going to do something about movie scores, then we needed some matrix to measure the scores against. So we sat down, we formulated just three basic questions that we use as our criteria to, rate our scores. And then, after that, we listen to the score, we watch the movie with the score in it, and then we give our opinions about both, and then we compare it to the matrix that we set into place. So simple premise, but it's very powerful because it has allowed us to watch movies in a different way and from a different perspective. Instead of just enjoying the cinematography or the dialogue, now we have to focus on, does the music do its job?
And see, it works too because whereas she's a classically trained musician, I'm played by
sucks.
That's really?
He sucks. Can't play by ear.
She gets very mad at me because when I start making music, she's listening to it, and she's going, "How can you do that?" I'm like, I don't know. It happens.
Man, some people just got it. Just for our audience, what would be the difference, score versus soundtrack?
Well, a score would be the film background, like, the Star Wars theme, for example. That's John Williams. Everybody knows that score, that theme. Soundtrack is more like various artists, like different bands and somewhat. Now, sometimes they will get confused and they will still call a soundtrack a score soundtrack, but, and some people, that's where the confusion starts. But yeah, a score is the orchestration, the brass, sometimes synth, different styles. Soundtracks mainly just, the pop music,
rap music, filler music that they stick in.
The source music is what the actual term for is, source music.
Good thing we got you on this one and not the Rocky 4, because Rocky 4 was just it's just all soundtrack. It's just
Rocky 4 is just a music video, and this, even when you look this up, it's like,
the Russians,
the Rocky original music picture score. Like when you look this up, like even I was trying to type in like, well, let me see if they even have a soundtrack, and all it keeps coming up, it says Rocky original motion picture score. Like, and I was so happy when Dan was like, we got a guest. He mentioned you guys, and I was like, well, it's perfect because I mean, we do dissect the movie differently, but it's great to do a movie that did have an original score on it. Because I remember even as a child, I was like shocked that like this was all original for the movie. So there's like so much to this movie.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Different layers.
Unbelievable. You know,
Manny was texting me the other day, and he's just like, "I'm nervous about this one. I'm nervous because he's like, what if I watch it and it just isn't good? I'm so freaked out."
Same things happened to us. Like when my Back to the Future, when we did Back to the Future, and I picked it. I can quote every single line of that movie. I have seen it so many times it's my favorite movie, one of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh no, now I'm listening to the music. What if my opinion of this movie changes? I was so scared to do that episode.
So right off the bat, Dan, we've talked about it. I thought I was going to ruin my childhood. This obviously came out way before. Like, when did it get released? Dan's the facts guy, so.
Yeah, so a little bit. Rocky is a 1976 American sports drama film directed by John G. Avildsen, written starring Sylvester Stallone. It tells a rags to riches American dream story of Rocky Balboa, an uneducated, kind-hearted, working-class Italian-American boxer working as a debt collector for a loan shark in the slums of Philadelphia. The basic story is he gets his once-in-a-lifetime shot at the World Championship against Apollo Creed, played by the brilliant Carl Weathers. It's like a rags to riches story, just like they said. And Stallone surrounded himself by a group of amazing actors. You have, like I said, Carl Weathers, Burt Young, Burgess Meredith, Talia Shire. It just was amazing to see how that all came together. And just this, there's so much trivia about Rocky. There's just so much history about how this movie was made. It was made for $1.1 million. That last 0.1 was actually the two producers mortgaged their houses to make sure that came through. They also were only allowed $1 million because Stallone was starring in it, and the production company was like, all right, we're going to give you 2, but now you get 1.
Who is this guy? This guy.
He had
even Carl Weathers didn't like him. He thought he was a stand-in. When he was like acting against him, he's like, oh, why do I have to do this stand-in? He's like, that is the lead actor. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I guess he'll get better. And that's how he got hired, because Stallone was happy that he said that. I was like, holy cow, man. And Rocky had to get rid of Rocky. Stallone had to sell his dog.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't feed him anymore. Budkiss, which I was like, I cried listening to that story. Like, I've seen a video of that when he was like, he had to let him go, and then like got paid for the movie, and finally like went back and bought him back again. Like,
he had like, was it $100 in his bank account, and he sold the script for like $350,000 with the promise, okay, I'm going to sell you it for $350,000, but I got to start it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he bought Budkiss back.
And what's funny is he worked for Scale as an actor, and then any other extra writing or anything, like they were like, we're not paying for that. Like, you know, so right. All the extra things that he did, like the scene, there's so many scenes that they improvise and he had to rewrite. The scene with when he goes in at the end and he's staring at the 2 pictures of Apollo and him the night before the fight, the props department messed that whole thing up. So they literally had to write that scene in so that he was like, we're just going to talk about it. And that actually brings a whole new layer to the movie, right? And like, no one cares about you. No one cares that you're doing this. It's a money grab that you're fighting. But he's like, let's put it in the movie. He approached everything that was a mistake in that film. The baggy robe, that was a mistake, a props mistake.
Dude, when I found that out, I was like, that's like a classic make fun of kind of Rocky thing. Like when they're like, oh, it's baggy. It's like, you think the robe's baggy?
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait, that was improvised? Like, he just wanted to say that to explain it to the audience, which there's a lot of scenes that are being explained to us. Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, does he think we're stupid? Or is he like, it's just how simple like this character is, but like loving. Although also has like an anger issue. in a
Like
way.
Nick shows up at his house and he starts, going off in his, wild tangent, and he's like,
this apartment stinks.
Yeah, this apartment stinks. It's because the bathroom actually stunk. That's why he was he was using that in that scene.
Yeah, they said that was totally improvised, and I was like, what do you mean? And like that was like classic scene. The scene with the ice skating rink that was supposed to have 300 extras in it, and he just rewrote it. Had that one guy pretend he's a Zamboni guy or whatever, or the owner, and that's a class. Like that scene, I think would have been looked differently if 300 people were there.
Yeah,
Like I don't think it would have had the same feeling either.
No, I thought it was great. Like he couldn't afford the skates. He was trying to like bring down the money of just to rent the place for the hour, and that's like he's pretending he's like I don't skate, but he couldn't afford it, and he didn't want to tell her that. So he was just like, let's go skate around. And I don't know if she really likes skating because Paulie was probably lying. Like Paulie lied he was a terrible person, but then also lovable.
He was horrible to his sister. I mean, he's all telling her she's dried up and she's no good and everything else. But Rocky was the only one that actually saw, the goodness in her. And I thought that was pretty cool.
So, in my mind, you've got a fighting movie that's about, this American dream from this fella that's from rag to riches. And then, but in the middle of it, in the middle of all of them, which I know y'all will get into eventually, it's this beautiful love story between him and Adrian.
I think the fighting is like 10% of this film.
Yeah.
This film is all the love story and also like how Rocky is with all these other people. Like there's some tragedy happening in Philadelphia here. Like Mickey's got issues, obviously. Like he wanted to pass down his knowledge and he sees like, hey, this guy's got an opportunity. I want to help him out just because he went nowhere. And he's like telling that story about getting like nails to his face and stuff like that. And he has issues. And obviously Paulie's got major issues.
What are you talking about?
And then that girl, Paulie's got PTSD. Like he's a veteran of like 20 years in like serving. And he's obviously got, alcoholism and other things going on. And then you got that girl that Rocky was trying to help. Like a lot of the movies just setting up like this guy breaks knuckles, but then is like not really that bad of a guy, but then is also a boxer who like goes off on tangents every once in a while. You're just like, there's so much to this.
That one scene with the bathroom, I think that was his breaking point. That was just Rocky just, he's tired of being stepped on. He just can't take it anymore. So he just let loose, all because Mick pushed him to that point. And then that's when he was like, okay, maybe Mick's right.
And you can hear that in the music because the composer, what he did was, if you listen to the initial theme for Rocky, it's a very somber, sad sounding theme. So like the first time you hear the score in the flick, he's walking by himself, and you hear the sad sound, and that's his theme song. But what they did was he rewrote it at the end. Going to Fly Now. Everybody knows that song from Rocky, but he put that theme back into Going Fly Now and rewrote it where it sounds triumphant, where he has defeated whatever demons he was going through, where he made it to the top. And you see this morphing of this. It was a nice character arc. You could even hear in the music that the composer, touched upon.
He had like one recording session. It was like 3 hours long. That's how he had just one
$25,000 budget.
Yep.
This movie was made for like zero money. Like the inflation calculated like on Wikipedia, it's like the amount of money it was made for would equal to like $4 million now. And the amount of money it made would be equal to like $1 billion. That's like Fast and the Furious level money. Like, and the thing is like, but it was made for no money. It was all guerrilla shot and all these things.
That's great.
Did you hear about the shot when he's running and that person throws him the orange or an apple?
Right.
The guy didn't know Sylvester Stallone.
He's threw an orange.
So that's what's crazy about like. So I went to school for film, and with that degree, I was an electrician for 18 years, and now I own a brewery. But pathologybrewing.com, shameless plugs. I appreciate like cinematography and stuff. I wanted to get into the shadows and the lightings of this and the grittiness of the film, but like just that, like I thought these were extras that were part of the whole thing. But the fact that they it was shot like an independent movie.
Yeah,
in my opinion, like
Yeah.
They were just like, oh, there's a boat. Oh, that'd be, the cinematographer was like, that'd be look really cool if you're like running by to show like the hard workers of like Philadelphia or the hard workers of the United States. Like, and okay, let me go run. Like how they put that all together is crazy. And with like, they even said that the shot where he's like talking to Adrian about how worried he is and like he doesn't think he belongs there. Like he has that self-doubt. He only had one take. He had to get that in one take. And you're talking about a person who obviously wasn't that great of an actor at that time. And he like, all right, let's do it. Like,
yeah. I mean, he was coming off of Lords of Flatbush, and that was a one take shot. You're right. And no, they didn't want to put it in the film, and he fought for that. He's like, no, this is important. And it is. It's a super important scene to the whole film. You can't not have that scene in the movie.
And when I watched it and saw it, it actually merges two aspects. One of his character that, okay, he's got to finish his character arc. He's starting to change and change for the better, but it also is a tender moment between him and Adrian. So it's a catalyst for that final scene, of their relationship at the end of the boxing match. So it was a very important scene, and I think Stallone was very intelligent in the fact that he knew that they needed to keep it in the film in order to finish his story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love also the character arc of Adrian. Which one? First of all, the actress was sick in the beginning, so she had the flu, so that's why like she had more of a shy demeanor. But I thought that worked. Although the scene with him bringing her in the house, I'm like, okay, she said no about 5 times. Like, let her go.
A little weird.
I like 2021 thinking like, oh God, like just let her go. Like this is
barricades herself in the bedroom and everything else. And Rock like, hey, Adrian, come on, won't you come out and everything? It's like, dude, just no
means
away.
no, walk away.
That apartment
so many times, and then when she's in the apartment and she's like, "Why don't you take off your glasses?" and she's like, "No, take off your hat." And I was like, "Dude, she's saying no. Come on."
He just basically leans in and starts kissing her. He was like, no, she doesn't want to do this, man. She said no about 20 times already. Just go ahead, back off, and let her sit down. Let her keep her glasses on.
And then she shrinks into this tiny little ball in the corner.
I know. My wife was watching this. She's like, what are we watching right now? Is this SVU? What are we watching? I was like,
but you know what's funny? On a scale of like most uncomfortable scenes, like this one's not that bad. Because I was watching, I'm like, all right, this is aggressive. But I was like, I've seen worse, like any John Hughes movie. Like, I was like like that's on a level of like that needs to be really looked at. But then it's like after that, she doesn't need glasses anymore, which is interesting. I'm trying to figure, it's like, oh, one good kiss, no more glasses.
No more glasses. She got her superhero power back. She goes on, her arc goes from like 0 to 60. Like she's like empowered to like talk against Paulie. Yeah. He's like, you want a roommate, like stands up, only wants to make out and hook up all the time. And he's like, no, woman, weakened legs. No. And she's like, but you just gave this to me. What do you mean? Like
independent 70s woman.
Yeah.
Raw burning,
Don't forget, after this, she's a very powerful force in all the other movies, like going forward. And that's why I was really upset that, fast forwarding to Rocky Balboa, it was crazy to have a movie where Adrian wasn't in it. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Rocky Balboa, Adrian's not in it. And you're missing out.
That was a decision between Stallone and Talia Shire because, Balboa needs that emotional crutch. He needs that reason to keep going. And, they decided to kill off Adrian. And she even made like a public statement saying, no, there's no bad blood or anything else. We came to this decision, on our own. We talked about this. And I have not seen Rocky Balboa. So to find this out, I know. Find this
Sorry for that spoiler.
I found out about it on way ahead of time. Well, like with this film, this is only like my 3rd time seeing it all the way through.
Oh,
yeah.
Number 1.
See the look I'm getting right now, right?
No, it's fine. It's fine. This is not my favorite Rocky film, although to me, it's obviously the foundation of all of this. To me, wasn't a boxing film. It was I forgot that this wasn't the time when they used the chicken. The chicken's the second movie.
That's right.
They don't even do that in the training montage is not that much in this. Yet when you think Rocky, you just think training montages. And I'm like, this is actually just a film about a guy in love with somebody, and like also like his relationships with like other people and how like simple but like thoughtful he was.
I don't think Stallone, when he originally wrote this, wanted to have a sequel. The original script called for him to like throw the match at the end, and I think, but the producers, everyone's like, no, we are changing that. We're gonna leave this open for a sequel. I mean,
He's supposed to throw the match because he wrote it originally that Mickey was a giant racist and he didn't want to be involved in the boxing game.
Yeah.
And Stallone they said no. They're like we didn't want that.
You know, and I thought about that when I watched the movie and watched the ending, and then I tried to visualize how would it be if they would have threw that alternate ending, let's call it, in there, and I don't think the movie would have worked at all.
It would not have had the same impact at all. I mean, you wouldn't have had the character arc. You wouldn't have had anything. It would have just led up to failure once again, and it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, you're right. It would have been him reverted, like going back to his original self, like just giving up. Another thing I thought about around this time, you didn't see sports movies end in a loss. Most of the time, the person who's the movie's about is going to win. You're like, yeah, he's going to win at the end. And you're like, wait, he didn't win. He didn't win. But yet he did, because all he could think about at the end is Adrian, and even that she lost her hat. I thought that was such a subtle.
I love that line.
Yeah,
because I'm like, you see her drop it, and I'm like, is he gonna bring that up? Is he gonna bring it up? And he brings it up. I was like, that's so good.
It shows you how not simple he was, but it shows you how considerate and kind and caring he was, and how rough the world around him had been to him. And it was such a very elegant and delicate moment when he mentions just the basic, you know, you lost your hat.
And the thing with the music, it really reflected that. I mean, every step of the way, you know, even with the subtlety of no music, it still, you know, gave you the emotional factor of you feel for this guy. I mean, he's being beat down and everything else, but yet he's still trying to stand up for himself, stand up for Adrian. He's trying to help that one girl that calls him a, you know, screw you, creepo.
Yeah. Who comes up, by the way, like another spoiler alert, that character is in Rocky Balboa.
Oh, okay.
I need to go back and watch that then.
The original actor too, yeah.
Yeah, original actor too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. The franchise is crazy. And like, yeah, I agree. Like, this movie's so... I wanted to make fun of it because, like, I wanted to say, like, the dubbing is terrible. Like, there's some dubbing you're like, oh my God. Like, the fighting in it, you're like,
making fun of the fighting.
Now, see, like I said, this is like my third time really watching this movie all the way through. And all the other times that I saw it, I was a younger, you know, I was a kid. And so when I'm sitting there watching this now, and the first fight you see him throw a punch and you don't see it connect. I'm going, wait, whoa. Did that just happen? Did I see that? I was like, oh, that didn't just happen. Then also you see another punch and, like, you know, he's throwing his head back. I'm like, yeah, that's happening. This is don't tell me this is the fighting, man. No.
Yeah.
I do not want to make fun of this movie. But then after that, that's when the story starts capturing you. The emotion, the character, the story. It just, you forget that the choreography was not the greatest in the world.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say, this is like the ugliest movie of the franchise. Like I was like, what? This is like, everything is just like Philadelphia, and wherever they also shot in LA as well, because that bar that he picked that drunk up off of the ground was LA. And I was like, man, they found like the places that like you are going to get murdered, like outside. But that's what is interesting about how the music plays such a role of like softening those edges a little bit, because the first time you meet Gazzo, the guy he's like the thumb breaker for, and he tells him that he should have broke his thumb, and he drives off, and then the music just kind of like comes in like real softly, and he's just walking down the street with that ball, which like, I love that
scene, man.
And that's his theme song. So then, you know, Bill Conti, who is the composer, he played upon that. But when they approached him to do Rocky, he was the third choice because nobody wanted to do the film for $25,000. So he was third choice. he wasn't a notable composer at the time. And he said, well, this is a movie about boxing and triumph. He said, and to me, triumph is very heavily, trumpets and brass. And so that's when you start hearing the fanfares, because he felt like that was triumphant music. And so he wove that into there. And it does, it works. But the amazing part is that last scene where it shows him running up the stairs to the very top, it didn't match the music. So that Gonna Fly Now, it was piecemealed together. So he had the fanfare. They said, well, no, we need you to add 90 seconds. So then he rewrote Rocky's theme and added in there. And they're like, no, we need you to add 30 more seconds because I took this out of the movie here. And they kept going on like that. Well, no, I need you to add 30 more seconds.
And from a composer standpoint, that's a nightmare right there.
So he was added to this piece. And so when they, after they filmed it and they started looking at it, they're like, this scene does not match the music. So what they do is after they filmed it, they shot it backwards. So it shows him, close up to his face. And then it works with the music. So that last scene was made with the music in mind.
That's amazing. It's so funny to talk about like how like when you talk about Victory, you have the big brass sections like coming in where like, and when the movie starts, it's huge. Like the music's just like boom. And
with the title card and everything.
Yeah. And then it zooms in and it's just like in this church basement, what it looks like. And
that scene.
And then
Spider Rico.
Spider Rico.
What type of name is that?
That guy's in Rocky Balboa too. Funny
enough. Wow.
Yeah, and that was the first fighter you got to fight in the Rocky video game. You have to beat Spider Rico.
Yeah, but it starts huge, but it slowly dips quickly. Like it's just the music is big, and then it's just like, but here's the visual, all very just like dark. And I mean, he got his head kicked in, like he got headbutted, and he only made like $40.
It was $40 and 45 cents or something like that. It was like nothing.
Yeah, got like a bunch of fees taken out for using the shower and getting cleaned up and everything. Yeah, locker fee and everything else. And that's just insane.
Yeah, it reminded me oddly of the Spider-Man thing when he was wrestling and like he was cheated out of some money too. I was like, man, these people just get paid nothing, And then, Dan, you mentioned it, like even the people, like everyone was gritty and like there was only like 3 really great looking people and everybody else was just like they were weathered, like Philadelphia weathered, like, working behind, like, working at the docks and stuff,
Talking about like a lot of the neighborhoods look like they were, someone can get murdered in. Like when Mick was walking away, I was like, no, old man, don't go down that alley. That's what I was thinking. Don't do that. No, Burgess Meredith, please turn around. You got to do Grumpy Old Men later on.
I know. But that's the same thing with Adrian when she's like, I got to go home. Like, best thing to do is go in that apartment. Like, because, like where are you going? I mean, you see the street you're on. I'm not going.
The thing is, it's like Rocky's apartment. You've got the mattress with like the knife stuck in it. I was like,
what was that?
It's never explained.
Chris is like, is that a knife in that mattress? I'm like, I think that is a knife in that mattress.
I feel like that was the mattress he used to like punch and stuff because like the other mattress didn't look like that, like the bed, but that thing was just standing there. Like he was just using
it. By the knife. I want to say it was held up by the knife.
Maybe.
Probably.
He had a knife.
Not that knife.
Yeah, he had a knife in the mattress. He had a knife on the wall. There was like a knife on the wall near the mirror where his photo was. I'm like, he's got 2 knives. He's got beer bottles all over the couch.
Yeah, I saw the beer bottles. I'm like, geez, how much does he drink?
Oh, he drinks a lot.
Like,
I know.
He's like, come here, sit down. Like, what? She made the right
so here's my theory. Here's my theory. Is he's all nice to everybody else, but when he goes home, he just goes into like a blind rage and gets drunk and starts stabbing things with his giant knives.
And he throws darts at straight up doors.
My favorite part when Mickey's talking to him.
Just starts throwing darts when Mickey's talking to him.
Yeah, but
who does that?
That's the thing about Stallone, like Stallone in this movie, he's great. Like his acting to me, I thought it was great because he's just like he has nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose. Like I have $106 in my bank account. I have to just like do everything possible. Sometimes in the action movies now, he's just like, fucking rich as hell. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm just doing this. Like, Cobra. If you watch Cobra, it's like he just walked through that. He like sleepwalked his way through Cobra. But like Rocky, he's like, I got my life depends on this, but I have zero money. Let's just do this.
Like Rambo. Was it that last scene at Rambo and you don't understand what he's saying? He's just and he's just mumbling, and you're like,
where's that Rocky acting for that one?
Right.
Amazing. It's just amazing.
My head now.
Oh, God.
Even but there was so many. I can't even remember all the jokes, but like, there's this. I feel like he was trying to be funny, and a lot of it, like the dry humor that goes on throughout the whole movie. Like, did you notice the one thing when he goes to the guy who's like cleaning outside? He's like, "What? Are you deaf?" He's like, "No, I'm short." I was like, that joke is amazing. Like, there's so many little like zingers that you got to be like, wait, what did he say? Like, it was so good.
Like bad jokes.
Yeah, they were definitely dad jokes, and I was like, some of these are just so funny. Like, if you have, and they're like almost every scene. Like,
what was it at the beginning with the pet store where he's like looking at the bird? It was like, oh, you ever noticed they look like candy? They look like
candy, flying candy. I'm like, what? Like, I was like, was that improvised? Come on, must have been improvised. And did you notice every time he walked into the pet store, it was cold. Like, outside, he was fine. He's talking to everybody. As soon as he would walk to see Adrian, he's like shoulders up, like cold. I'm like, is it just that much colder inside the birdhouse? Like, I'm not really sure.
Well, she's wearing all the clothing, so it has to be cold in there.
Scarves, gloves.
Yeah, she's got everything on.
Coat.
Well, what's funny is like I thought like I was like I think Rocky invented the dad joke because like he's literally practicing dad jokes at home to tell Adrian, and like, he's had to have like this is where this comes from. It has to be because I also at some point was like, did Rocky invent the montage? Like but then I looked and he didn't obviously, but like what did happen is after Rocky, the sports training montage became like a staple in all sports movies. So this movie did kind of usher that in. It was one of 3 films in 1976 that did use the Steadicam for the first time. And this was like the most important one that used the Steadicam when he ran up the stairs. So there was a lot of things going on in this film that had like zero money to spend. Were, like things were happening.
Yo, his goldfish. What the name of his goldfish? Moby Dick. And then the two turtles is Cuff and Link. You know he still has them?
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone still has them to this day.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now that I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I was like, I need to see a picture of what those things look like right now. Like,
gigantic.
I'm pretty sure Butkus is dead by now.
Yeah, he is.
I'm sure, man. Buck is so cool.
Yeah,
I love that dog.
And that dog was so happy to see him every time you saw him on scene. He was always
that was
wagging.
his dog.
Oh yeah,
so happy, baggy.
We were actually sitting there laughing because the way Butkus was looking at him, he's like, "Come on, Dad, get me out of the cage. Come on, seriously."
Yeah. He's like, "What is this thing that we're doing here? What are those cameras?" Like,
I'm hungry. Do you have food yet? Please tell me.
You bought me back. You got money. Come on.
Oh,
even that driver, the driver of the guy he works for, was saying bad jokes too. He's like, "You get the license plate for
that
what?
Guy.
The truck that hit your face last night." Or like whatever it was. I was like, yes.
A big ass. Every time he opened his mouth, I'm like, oh God, what is he gonna say now?
Yeah. I wanted to punch him.
Yeah. And he's like, "Why'd you become a boxer?" "Because I can't sing or dance."
Well, that was the thing. I was thinking, I'm like, Stallone wrote this down on paper. Like he was writing this script. Like, so these things that he was saying all are in a script. And I'm like, I need to see this script. Like, want to see these words.
She's like, "I need to call Paulie." He like opens the window. It's like, "Hey, Paulie!"
Just sleeping over here.
But he's like, "Where's your phone?" He's like, "Oh, I got it pulled." What? I literally was watching the movie with subtitles because there were things I couldn't hear, and I was like, "I need to watch this with subtitles." So,
watching something with subtitles always takes it to the next level because everybody's hearing is different, and some of the things you don't hear, and you're like, "Oh God, he said that."
Yeah.
What was that?
It's like, "Come over here, sit over here, sit on my couch." Sit on my couch.
So cringy too. He's like, come on, sit on the couch. He's like, what is he doing here? I wouldn't trust the guy that's got
after he took his shirt off.
Yeah, right.
As soon as he gets in, he's like, "It's hot in here," and it's like, "What?"
It's like, yeah, that's not smooth, Rock. No, man.
He's the most unsmooth person, but that's the thing. And he puts, he's like, "Oh, we'll listen to some
awkward.
music."
He's
Very awkward.
he's
Very
awesome.
Very awkward. But I think like it's so funny because it plays it up so much that like it's just like, yeah, these are awkward people. They're everyday people living in Philadelphia. This guy's fighting in a church basement, breaking thumbs. She's working in a pet shop. Her brother is a piece of garbage. Like these are
who like
that
throws away the turkey that's perfectly fine.
I know. I'm like, that turkey looks great. And he throws it out in the alley. And I'm like, what?
And then all of a sudden he's got the leg. And he's just like, "You hungry, Rock? Go ask her out. Come on, knock on the door."
So you know what happened?
Knock on it.
Him and his drunken ass went out into the alley and realized he was hungry and got a piece of turkey.
Yeah, which may or may not be fully cooked. We're not even sure because she's like,
he slung the turkey into the alley and kept the leg in his hand, so he slung the rest of it.
yeah, he was just like that, and it was like the only thing left, and he's like, okay.
I think
Yeah.
Burt Young is amazing. The guy who plays Paulie, that actor is just like, I believe that this man is a scumbag. Like,
I would have heard Burt Young is he was a very nice person. But
Yeah.
like, I saw him in Amityville 2, The Possession, and I hated his character because he was so horrible. He was just like Paulie, but like worse. And because it was a horror film, and so. And then when I'm watching Rocky, I'm like, oh God, he's playing another horrible person. This sucks. I want to like Burt Young, not like this.
Character actor.
Did you notice like when he's when we first meet him, he's in the bathroom and there's no mirror. He's like, "Who broke the mirror?" And I was like, was there a mirror? I'm not even sure if there was a piece of the mirror. I was trying to read any more trivia facts. I'm like, did someone break the mirror while on set and like Paulie just had to make fun of it? Because like that would have been something that the actors were doing during that. Because like it seems like there's so many improvised scenes that were done.
Is the punching the meat scene. I mean, that acting right there when he just starts punching, the meat and breaking the ribs. He's like, "Hey, Rock, you're gonna break the ribs on that, man." And then you see his face. He's scared. He's scared of what Rock's gonna do that to him. I was like, that was a very powerful scene.
Like, oops, I said the wrong thing.
That was such a powerful scene, and the look on Burt Young's face, I was just like, ooh.
But later, that shows him with the baseball bat. You remember he got enraged and he started bashing things with the bat, and Rocky actually looked like he was going to hit him. And all of a sudden, he lets out this little childlike whimper. And we're like, uh-oh, you could tell he was scared of him. He's such a wonderful actor to portray the fact that, he's just an assy rat. But on the flip side, you
can tell he's had a lot of trauma.
He can emote the emotions with his face very well. And he's just a really great actor, in my opinion.
They explain his backstory is that he lives off his pension of being a vet. Because how would he be able? People are like, how does he afford the house? And I'm like, he's a vet. So he's definitely tortured inside. All that is,
right.
Oh yeah. Just constantly has a flask on him and stuff. And then he's always looking for the hustle, like, can I make money off of you? And how great is Rocky to be like, okay, like, I don't care, whatever, and he's like, why are you he's like, what are you, a billboard? Oh, Mickey's like, says like, you're a fighter, not a billboard. And he's like, whatever, my friend just made $3,000. Like, what do I care?
Off this Rock, nothing.
Nothing.
A
baggy robe.
I get the baggy robe.
It's a little baggy.
He says in Rocky 2, he goes, this robe's so much better. The last one was so baggy. Like, like Stallone brings these jokes.
Oh no, it's great.
Like, I'm like, he's a secret genius.
Dude, he even says like, there's a part when Joe Frazier's there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's talking to Apollo, and Rocky goes, "They must be friends." That is an homage to Ali and Frazier. They used to be friends, and like Apollo was based on Ali, so like he mentioned that for that reason. I was like, man, he's so good at that, like just like the little nods. So good.
I love Carl Weathers and how he did that character. It was just amazing, and he's been amazing throughout the franchise. The first, the second, Rocky, the third one.
One of the funniest part of the movies where they're like the most celebrated day in America. And I was like, isn't that July 4th? And they were playing it off that it was New Year's. I was like, nah, I'm thinking it's July 4th, but okay, cool.
It's like January, New Year's Day. Okay.
New Year's Day. I'm like, it's
And
not
what
even
you
New
do?
Year's Eve. Like, you didn't even do this at midnight. You're like, yeah, New Year's Day. I'm like, no, we're all sleeping.
Man,
Like, no
wonder
one's celebrating anything.
There's so many empty seats in that fight scene when you do the close-ups because they couldn't pay enough extras to fill it out.
Yeah.
But like in my head, I was like, everyone's just hung over from New Year's Eve. That's probably
was
why
gonna
no one showed up to this fight.
The one thing I meant to mention, being a lover of cinematography, I don't know if you noticed, like in the beginning, a lot of it was there was like shadows everywhere. There was like, it was lit.
Brooding.
Yeah, it was lit. First of all, they loved the long shot and like either the one or the two person walking away in the front. And every room was almost kind of like lit like an Alfred Hitchcock film. Like the lights would come in sharp and everything would be shadowed. I was like, wow. Like I was noticing it a lot in this film. And that's why I was like, man, he really wanted to make a film and not just like a sports movie. You could have just made this a sports movie. Like
an art piece. You're right. So you've got the starkness of his life. He's in Philadelphia, and then you've got these shadows that kind of reflect that. Not only does the music reflect the somberness that's going on inside, you've got his outside environment that's reflecting that. So you've got these contrasts. It's not even subtle contrast. You got light and dark. It's really harsh, these harsh edges. And it really is like an art piece. It is beautifully done.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mickey going down the stairs in the apartment, like how there was like lit where he was, but it was so dark, like going down. Like I felt like I was in the steps. Like I was like, and that's why I always say this to Dan, like when we review movies, there's parts of the movies like the dubbing suck, like especially when they're fighting and they're trying to talk and like sometimes they were talking through their mouthpiece and stuff. I was like, I'm okay with that because I actually suspended my disbelief and I was in it. Like, and that's what makes a great movie. Like, I feel this guy's pain. I felt his like tenderness, but then also his willingness to fight for it and stuff. So I didn't ruin my childhood. So I'm really happy about it.
The whole time like, I was watching it and, I found out that a lot of it was, filmed guerrilla style. I was trying to imagine them in a van, just driving around. Okay, this is great. Here, get out, start running.
Yeah. And with like back then, it wasn't like we were running around with small, like Rebel cameras. You're running around with something bigger than a chair to step out and film that. Like, and it's film. It's not digital. It was like the movie was about him making the movie. They should make a movie of Sylvester Stallone making Rocky. Like what it went through. Like have someone play him and everything, and then like just see what it was like to actually make this movie. He made it in 28 days. 28 days. Movies are shot for like hundreds of days now. That was a Manny tangent.
That's pretty fast.
Several months. I mean, you're looking at like some movies that take like 6 months to make, and
and that's
you got this one
filming.
And here's the thing: like those films that shoot for 6 months, they will not still feel as real as Rocky did. Because watching the film, you feel like you're there because of the harsh lighting, the natural lighting, the acting, how they improvise. Just
all
about 90%
practical effects,
right?
All practical.
Yeah, especially the fighting.
All practical.
He quit smoking cigarettes. Doing this movie.
I would see why.
Right?
Asthmatic.
Yeah.
I can't run up those stairs anymore.
No.
That wheezing was so real. I was like, that would be me. Like I felt that pain. Like he looked like he was gonna cry. I was just like, that's why I hate running. But like it's funny. He's like,
when he was going up the stairs the first time, you mean?
Yeah,
and he's like, he's touching that part that you always touch. You're like, like,
dude, in that clothing, I know he had workout clothes on, but those clothes were like beyond workout clothes. Like I was like,
filthy,
grosser than gross.
He didn't do laundry, man. He just picked that off of the mattress that was hanging on by a knife. Like.
And then he drank 6 eggs.
Oh, that when the egg fell on his on his shirt, I was like, oh, he's not washing that. He's not washing it.
Oh, I knew it was coming too because when he started, I'm like, nope, here it comes.
Yeah.
But I mean, wearing Converse, he's jogging in her Converse. Those feet were killing him when he did that.
He had shin splints.
No, Chuck Taylor's.
Oh no, there's no paddings.
No.
There's no padding. It was funny. My cousin, shout out to my cousin Chris, if he's listening to this, he would play basketball still in like the 90s when we were kids in Chuck Taylors with no socks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he was really good. And I'm like, dude, I don't know how you're doing that. But when he started running in the Chuck Taylor, I was just like, no. But that's what people used to wear, even like playing basketball, like professional NBA basketball. Like I was blown away that like that's what he was running in. The eggs, I was like, he definitely swallowed some shells because he was just cracking those eggs like haphazardly. It was amazing.
I thought it was only 3 eggs. I always thought it was 3.
No.
When he got to 6, I was like, 6 eggs? No. The Chuck Taylors, let me ask you this. Is that what Rodriguez runs in Sandlot in? Was those Chuck Taylors?
It was PF Flyers. Yep.
That's what they were. So it was like the competitor of
Right.
the Chuck Taylors.
You know, I remember when we watched The Sandlot, my dad watched it because, you know, my family's from Pennsylvania, my dad's family. And my grandfather back in the 40s played professional ball. So, you know, it's a baseball movie, America's pastime. I remember Dad, we sat down and watched it. And, you know, the kid pulls out the PF Flyers and Dad goes, oh, yes, those are my PE shoes.
Guaranteed to make a kid run faster.
So they used to wear them when they dressed out for PE. They would
Oh
wear
my God.
PF Flyers.
That just looks like an ankle breaker. I feel like, you know, hipster kids in Brooklyn wear that as like, you know, something to go out with. You don't run in PF Flyers. Wow. So guys, if you like Nostalgia Test podcast, please don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe and like
Follow us on
subscribe.
all social media outlets that you can find us and where you can get podcasts. Podbean, Spotify, Apple.
Stallone just looked like
He did so good. It was.
he
I
looked
don't know.
exactly the way he was supposed to. It was funny because I was thinking about it today. I feel like that was his real apartment. These are his real clothes. Like I'm looking at that and I'm just like, yeah, he lives there. Like this
Yeah,
is his life.
that's probably
Like,
why you're right. Like the bathroom stunk. He's like, it does stink.
I
This
know
whole movie stinks.
Look at this apartment. Everything stinks.
Yeah, my dog. I sold my dog. Like
Again, we were watching a document. We were just watching a documentary on Sylvester Stallone's life.
This movie is kind of reflective of his real life, if you think about it. You know, before this movie came out, he was living paycheck to paycheck. He even started in a porno at one time. And, you know,
He
had
did?
like $100.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah.
No.
Stallone started
What was it, a porno?
yeah.
I have to go get her wipe.
Not
And-
that-
Oh man.
And he has
So he
lost it.
came up with a sex tape before the Kardashians.
That's right. That he got paid for. I don't know how much.
Yeah.
He probably made $28.
Yeah, that's where the
Men don't get paid that much in porno films.
And of course, this is the 70s. So, you know,
Yeah.
you have that catchy 70s music.
Oh man, that's crazy. That someone has a copy of that and is like, I'm selling this as a collectible.
And he's like, burn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone's gonna buy it. He's like, I will pay you $1 million and give me that copy of that VHS or whatever it might be on at that point. Maybe it's on that
tape.
laser disc or beta tape.
Beta.
But he, you know, was just trying to like break into Hollywood. And Talia Shire, even her, like she was the third choice. Like I feel like all the actors in here
Third choice.
was like third choice. Everyone involved in this film, and good because the third choice worked because like everyone was giving it their all. She was only given $7,500 to be in this film.
Wow.
That's it. And she was like, yes. I want to be in it. She wanted to like get out from under the shadow of her brother. Burgess Meredith wasn't the first choice.
No, he was the third choice too. Yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
no sense because he is such a great actor. I love Burgess Meredith in anything that he's ever been in.
Yes.
You know, I'm a student of old film. I love old film. I love his old stuff. I liked his newer stuff before he passed away. And I can't imagine them, you know, not thinking that he would have been bad for the role, you know, and be the, you know, the third choice. That just mind blowing to me.
Favorite all-time Burgess Meredith role was the Twilight Zone episode where he's got the glasses and
Yes.
all he wants to do is read, and then he.
Oh yes. Is that the one with the bank? He goes in the bank
Mhm.
safe,
Yep.
and then he comes out and it's like a nuclear.
Yeah.
And then he loses he breaks his glasses. Yeah. That was crazy. That was crazy. I loved him. I think you brought it up before. You mentioned it, the Grumpier Old Men.
Yep.
He was the grandfather, right? Or the father. Oh, he was great in that.
Every day.
So good. He's so good.
Yeah, the scene
So
between
good.
him and Stallone when Stallone comes in to the gym and they give him the card from Juergens, the promoter, and he asks him about, why he didn't. He wants to know kind of the truth about like why he treats him the way he treats him, and he's like, "I want to know." He's like, "You want to know?" He's like, "I want to know." And then like he just does that short. I'm just like, did they take this and make A Few Good Men? Like, I feel like in A Few Good Men, they were like, remember that scene in Rocky? Like, we're going to do that here with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise. Like, literally the same cadence. I was blown away by it. I was just like, oh, shit, look at that. But that
looks the same.
And Mickey's character throughout the franchise gets like so much even, like, he's so good. I love Mickey's character. When spoiler alert, he passes away. On the third one.
No,
I cried. I was like, you can't. I can't believe.
I'm a girl, so
I was like, Mickey, no way. I mean, I would watch Rockies like all the time. Like I was a wrestler too, so like that was like our like pump up. I don't know why just all the Rockies, but I mean, you only had to watch Rocky 4 to get pumped up. But just to like, it was man. We used to watch that. I'm like, why are we watching this? I don't want to watch the third one. So long. The third one's like 2 movies. It's like 2 movies.
Long, but yet it had Mr. T in it. And I loved the A-Team. I was a big A-Team fan. So, anytime you saw Mr. T, you're like, Mr. T,
Yeah.
Clubber Lang.
That movie was so long. Like, it felt long because of like,
this is not short either. This is like,
no, it's not.
This is a 2-hour film and only 10 minutes is fighting. Like the end fight's about 10-minute fight. Rocky 2, that's another really long film. And, just to talk about the fighting, Carl Weathers and Stallone did all of that fighting. All of it, because the stunt people walked off the set. Like, everything that could have went wrong with this movie went wrong. But then overnight, Stallone had to write every single move in this, like, that they were going to do. So jab, move right, move left, then throw this punch, then do that. He came in
and duck and everything
with 32 pages. 32 pages.
And don't forget, like you said before, he didn't get paid for that.
Right.
No, he didn't get paid for
as an artist. That's like art direction. That's
you can't
ballet writing. Like you wouldn't be able to get away with that now.
And yet he said he wasn't a good dancer. He's
I
lying.
know. Can't single dance.
Yeah.
Can't do dance.
Staying alive. Well, there are some great cameos by his brother Frank Stallone's in the movie 3 Dimensions.
Oh yeah, even the soundtrack.
He did some of the music.
Yeah, he did some of the songs.
Did he sing the song "Take It Back"?
That was him. That was Frank Stallone. That was straight up Frank Stallone, man.
He wrote the lyrics and he sang that song. And then he's the weird guy coming out of the alley when they went on their date. That's Frank Stallone. And then Frank Stallone is the guy who rings the bell at the fight. And then,
no, I thought that was his father. I thought that was Stallone's father.
I thought that was
rings
Frank
the bell.
Stallone. I might have gotten it wrong.
No, maybe.
It's one of the
maybe.
Stallones.
Yeah.
We got the Stallone part right.
Did you have a list of those actors that they wanted to consider for the role at the time?
Yes.
For Rocky?
Yeah,
Yes.
for Rocky.
What was it?
They didn't want Stallone in there. I think, was it James Caan was on the list?
James Caan was on the list.
Robert Redford.
Robert Redford.
Yeah, Redford was one of them.
So crazy. You're like, I can't imagine that.
No, Robert Redford wouldn't. I love Robert Redford, but no, he was bad choice for this film.
No, he's too much of a pretty. No.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been able to play that.
He's like,
No.
punch me.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Like, no one's hitting me.
Can't single dance. Yeah.
Stallone
He's
had
like
broken ribs. Carl Weathers got a broken nose. In
Stallone was able to do this with his finger, like bend it weirdly. Like
that was a real injury.
I know. Yeah, like you couldn't know.
He also flattened his knuckles by hitting that meat, so he has his hands are permanently damaged from that scene.
It's funny, like when you think about movies like that are iconic movies, when you talk about them and you find out like the history behind them, nothing ever goes right. It's like there's all these mistakes that become like amazing things. And it goes back to like, we talked about like Silly String in our episode where like Silly String was supposed to be like something else. And then it ended up being a toy.
It was supposed to be for cast, like for broken bones and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then we decided who cares about people and make it into a toy. But So like, it just seems like this movie was supposed to be horrible, and it ended up being like a movie that people still talked about to this day. We're even doing a podcast about it. Like, you know, and you hear about other movies and you go through it and you're like, wow, like there's so much against this, or like it was supposed to be that actor or this actor. And it's like, no, I can't imagine it being another actor.
But with this film, even James Caan couldn't pull off the softness that Stallone kind of had. I couldn't see him because he was already in the film. He was already in The Godfather, and that's another movie that they wanted to put Robert Redford in instead of Pacino. Like, I'm just like, what is with this obsession with Redford being Italian people? Like, I mean, like this is
He doesn't even look Italian.
No,
he's the furthest from Italian. Like, I'm like sitting there, I'm like, Rocky, the Italian.
He passes a German more than Italian.
Well, look at him in Captain America: Winter Soldier.
And even, you know, Talia Shire, she was going to be, they had someone else before her. Then they were going to get Susan Sarandon, but they thought Susan Sarandon was too good looking. So they took Talia Shire. And I'm like, Talia Shire, she does such a good job of being like meek and then strong and then unreal. But again, and she's Italian. So like, I feel like there's also, you got to think about that. Like, you know, there's like a look to this film, especially for the main characters, that you needed. And Susan Sarandon, that just wouldn't have worked. It would have been really weird.
Well, you know, there's a John Wayne film out there where John Wayne played Genghis Khan. John Wayne is the furthest Asian man in the universe.
Yeah.
And yet he is out in this film playing Genghis Khan, and he doesn't even, they have his face painted
terrible.
and everything. It is a terrible movie.
Terrible.
You have an idea. Italians are a certain way, and I'm not trying to characterize them, but you know they have dark hair or olive complecting. It's just their culture and how they are. But to stick a lily white person in that film, and you're like, oh, he's Chinese, or, you know, he's Genghis Khan, it does not work. And it would not work for this film either, when Philadelphia is known for being a melting pot. You know, like I said, my family was from Pennsylvania. We were coal miners from Western Pennsylvania and in the mountains there. And even my great grandparents would talk about having the Polish people together and the Italians. They all come together, and then they would speak a dirty form of English that they all could understand because they all had to learn English. It was the melting pot. So I can't imagine them putting anybody else in either of those roles. It would not have fit.
That was the one thing I really appreciate about this film, because one thing Manny and I have been noticing, especially about 80s films, well, this is made in 1976, so like how the true demographic of Philadelphia was represented. Everyone from every demographic. You had white actors, you have black actors, you have everybody kind of in that space. I mean, this is Philadelphia. We're like, we've seen some movies where we're just like, does not make sense. Like, how is this possible? We're like, and they even talk about race. They talk during the press conference. We talk about like what's it like being, you know, a black man fighting a white person, and
who also is an immigrant. Like, he brought that up, and I was like, wait, this movie was woke even back in the 1970s. Like, I was like, whoa, like they brought that up. He's like, what more American can it be? You know, Italian who, you know, found America, quotes,
quote unquote. Right.
And he's like going against, you know, an African American. I was like, whoa, they brought that up.
Yeah. You know, and also, you know, Rocky's character defends Adrian to the driver after he like uses the R word against her. Like, he's like, that's not, she's shy. And I'm like, it's 1976. I'm like, there are so many movies that we've just seen just from The Wedding Singer alone is like, but the offensiveness of The Wedding Singer versus, I was like, whoa. I was like,
look at Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, exactly. Tropic Thunder would never be able to be made right now.
No.
I was blown away by like the willingness to kind of not shy away from like talking about very specific things.
Well, and I think, you know, the political environment of the time, because, you know, Saturday Night Live came out shortly after 76. And a lot of Saturday Night Live satire was, you know, also related to issues like that going on. But they poked fun of it, and they made fun of it. They brought it to people's attention. You know, they were kind of forefront in that sort of comedy. So I think Rocky kind of led the way to that because it was on their minds in the 70s. They were getting out of the 60s. You just had all of that violence of the 60s that was really traumatic, especially, down south here. And so, they're trying to rebuild, and you see that as a reflection in the movie. So, I think it's a nice, delicate touch. It makes it more realistic. It pulls you into the story a little bit more. As Manny was saying, he was pulled into the story and he kind of overlooked some of those gross effects that, were going on in the background.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it was great. So I think we're going to get into repetitive mode. So Dan, I think we should get to the test.
Well, before we do that, I do want to just say one thing about one actor that we didn't talk about real quick to give this actor a lot of love as well. And that's Apollo Creed's trainer, Tony Burton.
Oh, yes.
Who doesn't have a name in this movie. In fact, he was only known as Apollo Creed's trainer. And then Carl Weathers calls him Tony, though in Rocky 2 and on, he's called Duke. That's the character's name. But Carl Weathers just called him by his real name in the movie.
He just called him Tony?
He just called him
in
Tony.
The movie?
Just call him Tony.
That's funny.
He's such a great actor. And my favorite scene with him is when he's watching Stallone hit that meat on the TV. Everyone's in business attire, and he's got his shirt totally unbuttoned.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He's like, you might need to come watch this. And he's like, no,
you hear in the background.
Yeah.
He's like,
that was an awesome scene, Dan. I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, yeah, everyone else is talking promotion and all this stuff. And you got the trainer who actually obviously cares about the fight. And he's like, this guy's not going to be a pushover. He actually is serious about this. He doesn't think it's an exhibition.
Yeah,
he thinks this is a fight. He doesn't know this is for money.
Once he gets into the ring, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and that's a great scene because he knows, he could see it. But my favorite part is that his shirt is just totally unbuttoned, and everyone else is got a tie on, and he's like, "Oh, this guy means business." And Carl was like, "Yeah, so do I. I mean business too." And they're talking, and I'm just like, Carl Weathers delivered that line so perfect. It's like, "Yeah, I mean business too." I'm like, because even in the scene where they're at the press conference. And they're bantering back and forth. It was so on. And then that one part where Stallone's like, I just want to say hello to my girlfriend. Hey, yo, Adrian, I'm on TV. Can you believe this? And they're pushing him. And then he gets in their face like, what? I'll smack you in the mouth.
I was actually going to bring that up before. There's a part where he's standing outside. He just said goodbye to Adrian. And they had just watched the interview on TV. And he's like, and they zoom up on his face, it's a side shot. Yeah. And they're like, how I said I don't care about what they said? I do. And I was so touched by that, where he was vulnerable to tell his girlfriend, he's a tough guy, Italian, I'm the man. He was almost pushing her to kiss her in his apartment. But then there's a moment where he's he does have, feelings, and it bothered him that they were treating him like an idiot, that they were treating him like a fool.
Character arc. But, prior to that, when he was watching himself on the video, and I pointed this out to Chris, he was wearing the same sweater and the shirt on the TV as he was watching it. I'm like, was that recorded the same day? What's going on here?
They left the press conference, came over to Adrian.
Christmas sweater on.
That's right. That's the only sweater Stallone had that day. So he's like, I'm wearing this the whole time.
He had that sweater, the gray sweater he wore on the date, and then another
always V-neck or something.
Yeah, that weird V-neck that he took off because it was extremely hot in his apartment.
A white tank with a hole in it. It had a hole in it. I'm just like,
they said that they had to buy. I mean, most of the actors had to wear their own clothing because they couldn't afford to pay, get costumes and stuff.
Budget, they couldn't afford just a basic T-shirt. They could have found it.
But the fedora and the leather jacket was bought at a secondhand store in Philadelphia.
I love fedoras. I thought that was just a nice touch. I'm like, look at that classy fedora.
I couldn't. We moved recently, so all my fedoras are away, and I was gonna wear one for the podcast, and I was like so mad that I couldn't find it. So
I thought about I could wear one of mine.
I have a fedora myself too, so
Oh, love fedoras. It's a great.
I was gonna say, at 57 minutes, I cried, and then I cried at the end.
What was that? 57 minutes.
It was like, after he said he wants the truth from Mickey, and then he's walking out, and then I guess he goes to the office. Something happened in that exchange that I don't know why it touched me. I was like, oh my God, like, because he's like seeing his life kind of like he's saying no to an opportunity that would have been it's life changing. He's like, no, and I'm like, oh God, he doesn't
he was
believe
like
in himself.
afraid to step out of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I think that was what Mickey's whole point was that, you have the potential to be great and you put yourself in this box and you have not stepped outside of this box.
Yeah.
And you can see that in that scene where he's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
There's a part in that scene, Dan, that I remember. This goes back to the subtlety of Stallone. Like, I can't believe that I'm talking about Stallone this way, but like, he hands over the secretary the blue note, and he asks for it back.
Like, can I have it back?
And that means nothing to some people, but I'm like, no, like that meant something to him. Like, yo, can I have that back? Like, I need to remember that. Like, somebody gave me this. Like, somebody wanted to see me. Like, I don't want you to keep this. Like, this is my thing. Like, I was like, whoo.
Yeah.
Now there is one scene that I wanted to mention real quick before we get off of here.
All right.
The cut scene where they cut his eye. And you were talking about the bad effects. You can see where he pushes the thing down and he literally squeezes it to get the blood to squirt out of it. And that actually pulled me out of the scene when he goes, cut me, and they cut his eye.
Cut me, Mick.
And I'm like, oh gosh. It's a crazy.
But that's like a classic like scene you talk about, even though it's a terrible scene. Like you still like you were just saying, you're like, cut me milk, cut me milk. People repeat it, and you're just like, but the scene's terrible. Like it's not like, it's so bad. It's like that's a scene that you would like see in Saturday Night Live to make fun of Rocky. Like that's the cut you would see, like the bad, like, we're squeezing it.
You didn't see it cut. You didn't see anything happen other than him just go.
Yeah, just like squeezing it. That was also around the time like you heard the dub at the end when Mick says like stay down.
Yeah.
Like when he gets knocked down at the end and he's like stay down. Like the dubbing was terrible. Like Mick didn't speak. He wasn't speaking at all. And they're like stay down, stay down. I'm like, yeah, he didn't say that there. He said that in post. Like that wasn't in there.
I was watching that fight and I'm watching as the rounds are going. And then when they get to the 14th round, I'm like, they would have stopped this fight like eight rounds in because like these two can't.
They weren't even fighting anymore. They were just like
standing there.
Yeah, Rocky looks like he's about to fall down and take a nap or something.
He's got one eye. He can't see. He's literally like trying to see with one eye going up and down. And I love that movement. But I'm just like, he can't see. The referee's like, you guys all right? What do you mean you're all right? Like, they're not going to be okay at all. And like,
no,
they would never let a fight go that far. And
not anymore.
No.
Wait, I'm going to blow your mind here. Rocky won this fight in the first round.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because if he didn't distract the ref, they say it's a 15 to 18 count.
Yeah. He didn't go to a neutral corner.
Apollo lost the fight because if he went to his neutral corner, the ref would have counted. Apollo was out. So they actually said that Rocky messed up because he was just so excited. He messed up his win and made it go the distance where he could have just won the fight. So this shirt should really just say 1976. Rocky beats Apollo, but it doesn't. It says 1979.
Yeah.
But
oh God, yeah. Rocky went up against some really heavy hitters that year for best film as well. All the President's Men, Bound for Glory, Network, and Taxi Driver, all for Film of the Year.
Taxi Driver. And
Rocky won Film of the Year, but every single person I think was also nominated for an Oscar as well.
Rocky IV was the only one that Bill Conti didn't score. It was scored by Vince Nicola.
Really?
Transformers the movie. So Bill Conti came back for all of them but Rocky IV.
Did he come back for Rocky Balboa?
Wow. Wow.
Huh.
So,
Well,
this movie catapulted his career. It catapulted Stallone's career. This was a start for both of their careers. So it was monumental, in that respect. And it set the tone for all the Rockies to follow, even though they didn't want to do more Rocky films. This film here, to me, was a great foundation that they could build upon and continue that story arc between all these characters. And you see development throughout the film. So, it was a pretty solid film.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 So,
I mean, we're here. We're at the end here. So, I mean, I'm going to go first because obviously I'm excited.
so excited.
Obviously, this thing is destroyed the nostalgia test. When we talk about nostalgic movies, you think about that time when you're watching it and like who you were with and all that stuff. This is I've watched it too many times. What I'm thinking about is that I watched it yesterday. So like of course it's amazing. This is nothing. If anyone says this movie is bad, I don't know what they're watching. They've only watched it on TLC with commercials. You have to sit down and to watch it. Just watch. There's something in this movie that's great. The score, the acting, the bad jokes. Like there's so much to it that it's amazing. Pass the test. Go on.
I'll let you go first.
I agree. It passes y'all's test. It passes our test as well, because we were looking at it also from our Matrix standpoint with the score.
Oh, yeah.
Especially the last scene where they had to refill or re-edit that last scene to fit that score piece. So not only is that a memorable score piece, but the film itself has incorporated a part of that. So that to me just made it amazing. So yes, as our 3 questions that we ask, does it work for the film? Yes, the score definitely works for the film. I think he did an amazing job. It shows character development with the characters. It reflects all of that inner emotions and dialogue that Rocky's having. It makes you feel triumphant where it needs to make you feel triumphant. So it works for that.
And there's the favorite scenes in there with the score is like mainly the sadder moments. Rocky's theme coming in there, where he's like you were talking about, where yeah, it did bother me, and then the piano theme comes back in there. They're gonna fly now, but it's his theme, and could we imagine this film with any other score? No, it wouldn't have worked.
No.
Yeah. There's no way you could not have captured the same emotion, the same drive, the same energy with any other composer. And so no, there could not have been any other score for this film. Now, does it pass the nostalgia test? Definitely.
Yeah. So pass our test as well as your test.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just to go back real quick on the way you guys do your tests. Like I've listened to a couple episodes. You guys actually just listen to the score by itself before you see the movie and then you rewatch the movie?
Yes.
Do you see if you feel anything and like picture it and stuff?
Now we did that with Rocky as well. We listened to the score and we went through, and it was very surprising. There was like one track in there. It was actually a song, not the "Gonna Fly Now." It was actual straight up source music. But every single piece, you always felt the emotion. And I'm trying to listen to it. We try to picture. Can we tell the story just by listening to the music? Can we understand the character just by listening to the music? And then when we watch the film, to see if we still have that same reaction. And we did with this.
Yeah.
Have you guys ruined some of your movies by doing that? Like, have you gotten to a test where you've like been like, oh no, that movie is great. And then you like, wait, it's not the score. The score. No.
Child's Play 2.
I can't stand it.
Child's Play 2?
Child's Play 2. It was our third
episode. You do horror films, right?
Yeah, we do.
I do. Yeah, we did Child's Play 2. It was our third episode. Our least listened episode too, as of right now. But I did that one because I was such a fan of that score. Growing up, I would listen to it and I was like, oh man, this is a great score. This is going to be, and they just released it on Spotify, on digital.
He was excited too. He's like, look, they just released it. Right. I'm like, oh, I've never seen the movie.
Yeah, and like, I even posted it on my Facebook and like, nobody cared.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do it for the podcast, and going back and listening to it and then judging against the film, it kind of ruined it into the aspect of it the same feeling was not there. I didn't, like a nostalgia feeling. It wasn't there anymore, because when I was doing it against the film, it didn't work. Not as well as I had hoped.
Yeah.
So it does kind of ruin it a little bit.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, you get there. You're just like, oh
man, I was so hoping that this was great. And then
but you compose, like you said, you compose music. You do like majority horror, or you like that genre? Or
the majority of the films, majority of the directors that come to me, they come to me with a horror film. But I do a wide range of different style of films, comedy, horror. I've come to a lot of dramatic films have been coming to me lately, and those are very interesting to do, because you're having to emote that emotion of the characters in the story. Like one of them I just recently scored, it was a apocalyptic drama. It was two characters trying to figure out how they're going to get out of there, how they're going to survive, but you never see the apocalypse that much. You only hear about it. You can only hear sound effects. There's a guy beating at the door, trying to get in, and the two women are not letting him in. And so I had to emote not only their fear, but also the sadness that of this guy beating on the door, just trying to get in. He's just trying to survive. It was fun. It was fun to do that, actually.
Wow, that's awesome. I always said that, like, a lot of soundtrack or score, or just music, or just a tone, or this. Imagine life having a score.
Sometimes I do that. I'm though. One day I was just driving down the street, and I was listening to our classical music station. I can't remember what was on. It was like a Gershwin song or something like that, piano playing in the background. And I saw this single plastic bag floating in the air. And I'm like, that is so perfect for what's going on right now. And it's just floating in the air. And I hear this nice piano melody in the background, and I'm laughing. I think it's the funniest thing.
That's great.
It's so interesting to kind of see how music played such a big role, and how Stallone was so, in a way, very lucky that all these things fell the way they did in the end to make this movie happen the way it did. Because anything other than this score by Bill Conti would have it would have been a totally different film. It just would not have worked exactly. It wouldn't have worked like this.
And that's a nostalgia test tangent.
But I'm gonna agree with everyone and say, like, this passes the nostalgia test. I was worried at first, because I was like, I haven't seen Rocky 1 in a while, and I was like, oh boy. And we've done certain things where we were just like, oh yeah, I listen to this all the time, or I've watched this, and then we come back, and it's like, what happened?
We call that the Take Off Your Pants and Jacket album. Bad.
Yeah, and everyone out there, let us know, what are your thoughts on Rocky 1? I mean, maybe you don't like Rocky 1, but I think you're wrong. I think Rocky 1 is an amazing film. Please, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Nostalgia Test, on Twitter at Nostalgia Test. Go to the website, nostalgiatest.com, subscribe, leave a review, and join the mailing list. And Chris and Leslie, where can our audience find you?
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or on Twitter, it's at Measure the Score. Instagram, you just type in Measuring the Score. Facebook, same thing, Measuring the Score. You can also send us an email, measuringthescore@gmail.com. We love to hear from our listeners. I mean, we've got a ton of great feedback from people on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Twitter as well. Twitter is one of the main ones where we get a lot of great feedback on. So pretty much any social media platform you can find us on there. Awesome.
And we look forward to hearing everyone's thoughts, and we'd love to have you back. And thank you so much again, everyone out there. See you at the next test.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe to the Nostalgia Test podcast to know when new episodes drop. Don't forget to leave us 5 stars and a positive review so more people can find the podcast. Share your thoughts and memories on today's topic on our Twitter at Nostalgia Test, and on Instagram at The Nostalgia Test. Tune in next time, because you never know what pop culture will pop up on The Nostalgia Test.